Mr. Scoop,
I'd like to call to order the Naperville Park District Board of Commissioners regular meeting. Today is Thursday, October 25th. Time is 6:30 p.m. Bridget, would you call the roll, please?
President Riley?
Here.
Vice President Janner?
Here.
Commissioner Carlson? Absent. Commissioner Egan? Commissioner Ensign? Absent. Commissioner King?
Here.
Commissioner Todd?
Here.
I've been notified that Commissioner Carlson is out of town on business and wishes to participate via phone.
Move to allow remote participation of Commissioner Carlson, who is out of town on business, as allowed per Section 7 of the Open Meetings Act.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion?
That's at,
All in favor? Aye. We dial him in. Commissioner Carlson?
Bobby, are you there?
Yep.
You are in the meeting here.
Okay, good. Okay, next item is matters from the public. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
We do not.
Okay. Next item is the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Item C.
Anything else? Okay.
Move to accept consent agenda items A and B.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Vice President Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes.
Move to approve consent agenda as accepted.
Second.
Motion is second. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And unfinished business?
Move to approve purchase of a NetApp FAS 2750 storage area network from IT Savvy for amount of $61,794.
Second.
A motion and a second. And Omar, could you please explain this over? Not that I need any explanation, but some of the other commissioners.
Great. So this is basically our storage hardware and software that helps us run all of our data center. It's going to include in the future both our virtual desktop environment and our virtual server environment. Currently we have two that run their course. The reason why we have two is that in 2012 we put in the first one when we took the dive into virtual environment and did the servers first, and then in 2014 we did the desktops. So now we're looking to consolidate everything into one appliance, obviously for cost, but then as well for efficiency. And the device that we've chosen, we've actually been in negotiations for about 2-3 months. They're very expensive. This is actually 60% off retail on both of these, is the quoted price that we got. But there's a lot of things that we've taken into consideration to help bring down that cost as well. So, for example, the device that the two that we came down to make sure they were apples to apples, have both, they're called hybrid devices because they have both spinning disks and non-spinning disks. And that just means that they're faster and their IOPS are faster so that we can read write them faster. So I probably didn't help with the explanation, but that's, that's the purpose for the purchase.
Any questions? Then no further discussion. Bridget, call the roll, please.
Vice President Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes. Next, move on to new business. We have discussion items. And the first item of discussion is a golf consultant's presentation. Kevin, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, we'll start you out. Thanks, Mike. As you know, one of the Park District's district-wide goals this year is to develop and present a golf master plan. So we're looking to develop a comprehensive master plan that will provide guidance regarding the prioritization of golf development projects and goals to address the future needs of our golf courses. The depth for the golf courses is slated to retire after the 2019 season. Yay! And that will open up an opportunity for our golf courses to expand or look at other large capital projects that we have been deferring for a number of years. So the question is, what needs to be done? Over the years, our customers have pointed out several issues on our courses through surveys and focus groups. As you can see, common themes show up here: bunkers, drainage, and the words "improvements needed" come up quite a bit. Specific issues also come up, and specific comments relating to these issues. The idea that the whole course has drainage issues, I avoid it for days after a rain. That's not something I like to hear. Obviously, not good for business if a customer is not coming back to the golf course for a period of time after a rainstorm. It's looking at both golf courses. We have Naperville Park. There's areas out there with our practice facility that are deficient. A couple of years ago, we renovated and improved our facility over at Springbrook. The facility is doing very well, but now the people over at Naperville are asking the same question about where can we practice now. So the question, what needs to be done and how are we going to do this? And if we can do this, what are the projects that are going to benefit us the most? And so to help answer these questions, we sought out some professional assistance. The first phase, we contracted with Greg Martin Architects. And Greg is a well-known, award-winning local golf course architect who's worked with several local municipalities here, including DuPage County Forest Preserve, King County Forest Preserve, Joliet Park District, and most recently he did work with us in our renovation at Springbrook Golf Course. We had Greg review and analyze our golf courses. We took him out on the golf course, walked through all the property with him, discussed our thoughts and what we see on the golf course, and kind of give him an idea of where we see issues and where we need improvements. And then from there, we kind of went to our golfers, our public, and kind of get an idea exactly what they want to see. We took a cross-section of our golfers, some seniors, men, women. We had some members and some of the high school coaches to kind of get a feel for what the juniors want to see. And we asked them, what do we need to do at our golf courses? From all that input, Greg was able to create some concept plans, identify some renovation needs and some requirements that really would take the golf courses or bring the golf courses up to par with some of our competitors. With those concepts, we took them back to the golfers again. We had concept review meetings with them and kind of got the feel for what they liked, what they didn't like, comments and questions about what may work, what may not work. And with that, we had Greg prepare a final plan, and he took that plan and came up with some cost estimates and phasing recommendations for all these projects. Then we began working with the National Golf Foundation. We drew on their expertise in providing operational development and marketing advisory services. They have experience working with over 900 different consulting assignments around the world, and they provide impartial consulting based on different golf facility projects. We asked the NGF to kind of perform a complete look at our golf course operations, a market review and financial analysis. They assessed, most importantly, the market viability for our courses. What will our courses look like in the next few years? We gave them all the projects and recommendations from Greg, and we had them review those proposals and evaluate them for economic potential and make recommendations on our operations and what improvements would work with us. And with that, I'd like to introduce Richard Singer. Richard Singer is the Senior Director of Consulting Services for the National Golf Foundation, and he's going to kind of run through some of the findings and some of the thoughts that they had on our golf courses and be willing to answer any questions at the end of that.
Yes.
Richard?
Yep. Thanks, Kevin. As you mentioned, I'm Richard Singer from NGF, and good to be in front of you all and have a chance to meet you. I know for most of us it's the first time that we're meeting, but I can tell you, you all have been a big part of my life for the last couple of months, even though you may not have known it. Studying all of this and looking at your golf system and your golf courses. And you know, it's been very interesting for me, and you can certainly got a lot to be proud of with the Naperville Park District golf courses. They're well known for their quality. What I'm going to do is give you about a 15-minute presentation to kind of summarize the work that I've been doing the last couple of months on your golf system, and then be available to answer your questions. I can tell you that this type of project is very much front and center for the work that I'm doing at NGF now for the last several years. The vast majority of it has been with public sector agencies like yourselves that are trying to figure out the future of their golf systems. And I think for me, and what I'm trying to do and trying to help you understand is thinking about Naperville Park District golf courses in 2030 and beyond. I mean, it's the next 10, 15, 20 years. This is a living, breathing asset, and they're long-term assets, and you have to be thinking about them long-term. And I think that we're trying to help you look ahead about the appropriateness of the improvements that are being proposed. You know, what kind of market or environment are you operating in, and what does that look like now, and what's that going to look like in the future? What is the economic potential? What is the potential impact of these changes that you're about to do, and what kind of expense can be supported by the revenues that are generated from these golf courses? And I think that that's a key piece in what we're evaluating. The key components of the study that we had done and prepared a full written report that we've delivered to the district. I believe that has been made available to all of you. We want to look at the condition and efficiencies of your golf courses, how that compares to some industry standards and some norms in public golf, and also look at the status of the local public golf market. What is the demand and supply balance for public golf in this immediate area and the region as a whole? And that can help us estimate a realistic economic performance for you going forward for Springbrook and Naperbrook golf courses. I think that's key to evaluating these projects. So one of the things we did, I mean, certainly you know this, just a quick review. You've got the Springbrook golf course, goes all the way back to 1973. Your Naperbrook golf course is from 1991. Both of the courses basically have amenities and location and features that are consistent with success in public golf. You certainly have a lot to be thankful for in that regard. High quality golf courses at good locations, proximate to golfer populations, easily accessible to golfer populations, all very favorable things to have when you're in the public golf business like the Naperville Park District is. But Springbrook certainly needs some improvement to its drainage and playability, things that you can do to maybe soften the difficulty of the golf course to get more people out and enjoying it. Obviously the drainage issue, which your golfers are also noting, as we saw earlier, I noticed it too, and I think that directly impacts the volume of play, the number of rounds you can generate. And the number of rounds equals revenue. The more rounds you can play, the more revenue you can generate. So anything you can do to increase the capacity at Springbrook will be a big help to the golf course. Naperbrook has kind of got some assets that are kind of reaching that stage, that first stage from a 1991 development, where you're kind of coming to the end of the expected useful life on some of your mission critical systems, in particular the irrigation system there, which is the lifeblood of any golf course, being able to water your fairways and greens and tees and keep the conditions that will drive the demand for the golfers to come back. And I think some other things like practice amenities and some facilities to host large events. Events are certainly key. Leagues and outings are a big part of your business now, and anything you can do to better accommodate those will lead to more rounds played. And as I said before, more rounds played leads to more revenue, which helps the system. But still, the system is still pretty strong. The average 18-hole golf course in the U.S. earns about $1 million a year in revenue, and you're earning a considerable amount more than that, about 1.8 or so million per year on each of your courses, or about 3.7 total, which equates to about $51 per round of golf of revenue that you're generating on your golf courses. That's compared to a U.S. average of about $33 per round of golf. So it's certainly much stronger performing facilities than we see in the country. But just as you've got a lot of revenue, you also have a lot of expense to operate the golf courses. They're also higher than average. It's also about $1 million per 18 holes to operate a golf course, so you're also higher on that. And it leaves a surplus on your operation, which is a strong position in golf, but that's being eaten up by the annual debt expense that we just mentioned, which is going to go away in a couple of years, or at the end of next year, really. So that's a real big plus for you coming in, which leaves, after debt, you've had a surplus of about $380,000 per year. I have documented in my research that 2/3 of all the public sector golf courses in the country lose money. So you're in that 1/3 that's doing well. Now, I recognize that there is no generally accepted standard accounting principle for municipal golf, so different municipalities account for things differently, but I'm very comfortable with this number, that about 2/3 of all public sector golf loses money. So you're in that 1/3 that's making money. One of the things that you had retained us to do, and that we do on a regular basis, is study golf markets all across the country. And although there has been some leveling off of demand and some challenges, we are certainly of the opinion that golf is not dead. It's not a dead sport. What we're finding is that personal finances, time, availability, pressures of work and time and family are impacting the demand for golf, but not waning appeal for the game. People are still very interested in golf. We have a high number of people who don't play golf who have expressed to us in surveys that they're interested in learning how to play golf. And there still is a vibrant and strong market of golf all over the country, and in particular in the greater Chicagoland market, which is one of the, if not the strongest golf markets in the entire U.S. Suburban Chicago is a very, very strong golf market. A lot of golfers, a lot of demand, but by the same token, there's also a lot of supply. There's a lot of choices for those golfers in this market, which makes it all the more important for you to kind of keep ahead with your conditioning and your facilities so that you're providing a good, high-quality golf course facility that can hold up well when there's strong demand and when there's a lot of competition. We also have identified the fact that inflation to operate golf courses is growing faster than the green fees are. And that's a challenge nationwide, and certainly a challenge to you as well. So anything you can do to help improve your efficiencies in your operation will also go a long way. There's that phrase, you spend money to make money, but sometimes you also have to spend money to save money, to be more efficient in your operation. And I think some of the enhancements that are being proposed can help you there too. I think that we, in this report that we've delivered to you, have made some projections about the future of golf at these locations, which I'll go over in just a minute, but I wanted to share with you some of our thinking in terms of what the support is for it, why we think that there's a high probability that the projections we have made can be realized. Certainly we see high incomes and a diversified local economy, things that tend to correlate well with strong golf demand. The population growth is continuing. The fact that we did not see any new golf courses listed as in planning or under construction in this area, the overall ratio of households to golf courses is improving, plus the fact that we've had some closures in the market area of golf courses. So the ones that remain certainly have a better market balanced position. There have been a lot of success stories of other public golf courses in the suburbs of Chicago, and in many cases correlating directly to recent improvements. They've made some of these similar type of improvements that we're looking at doing here, and the result has been success. And we have documented that for you in the report that we've delivered. And I think that the proposed changes are expected to increase capacities and help foster new demand at the golf courses. Anything you can do to improve the drainage at Springbrook, to get more rounds, to get carts out there more often, will increase the number of rounds, and increasing rounds increases revenue. Anything you can do at Naperville to help make that facility more appealing to outings, events, and tournaments, things like that, which bring new golfers, bring new players to the facilities, I think that that will definitely lead to increased play there as well. You always have to consider the threats too. There are things that are out there that potentially could impact the performance of these facilities. Who can predict the next recession? I certainly experienced it a lot in working here the last couple of months about some of the traffic congestion. We mentioned that time compression and time availability is a big challenge for people to play more golf. Sitting in your car, creeping along, maybe Route 59, things like that, that's going to impact your demand for golf. And some of these locations are not proximate to large population centers like some other golf courses we see. What I call, I colloquially refer to as the fall out of bed market, right? The homes that are right on top of these golf courses. Some of the neighborhoods are not really that large and don't have that kind of population size that's that close, which means all of your demand is kind of being imported from some other areas. So that ultimately could be a challenge going forward. If expenses go up even faster than the inflation we've been experiencing, that could be a challenge. But and I think that the continued decline in golf participation. I mean, if that is something that continues, that could be a challenge. But I think that your facilities and the programs in place and some of the new amenities and facilities that you are proposing for Naperville, for example, can really help alleviate that. One of the things that I'm very impressed with Naperville Park District golf courses is your ability to grow the game yourself. You're developing new players with your lessons and programming and camps and all of that, which is working to bring new people to the game. New people to the game means more rounds means more revenue, and I think you can help mitigate some of that risk yourself with some of the programming that you're doing. So our finding in summary is that we have identified and believe that there is clear and continued support for the continued operation of both Naperville Park District golf courses. And I think that new investment in these facilities is justified and will help you in the long run for sustaining these properties into the next couple of decades. And I think that that's really important to consider. Anything you can do to enhance capacities at these properties will lead to enhanced rounds played, which will lead to enhanced revenue. And that's the key for economic success. I think that both district golf courses are economically sustainable, but you do need these enhancements under consideration. A lot of what's being proposed are essentially catching up on some deferred maintenance items on these golf courses that are eventually going to come back to get you. An irrigation system is the lifeblood of a golf course. It typically has a 25 or 30-year lifespan. You have to be ready for that. And anything you can do to enhance your capacities by improving drainage, improving cart paths, making it easier for golfers to play more golf. They're going to respond to that by playing more golf and generating more revenue. Asset maintenance, addressing infrastructure, items that are near the end of their useful life. That's a big part of what is being proposed here. And you're not really going out on a limb by upgrading a lot of areas that are kind of nice to have as opposed to need to have. These items are need to have items for a golf course. I think that's really important. We had estimated that the drainage improvements alone at Springbrook would increase rounds capacity by about 2,000 rounds per year at an average of $50, as we saw before, dollars per round. That's another $100,000 or so right there of income that you can generate just by improving your drainage systems. And obviously, the irrigation system at Naperville, I think, is more of addressing a mission critical item. It may be to some degree more of a defensive type investment. It's not necessarily an investment to grow revenue, but if you want to keep golf at the Naperville site, it's certainly an investment that you're going to have to make. And then there's other things that on both of these properties that you can do to improve your marketability with playability, some new forward tees, some softening of some of the golf holes, making it a little easier in spots for the golfers, some tree removal, improving some of the water features. All of that I think will help. We had done a projection of this, basically showing a staggered type of upgrade where the Springbrook renovation is done first in 2020, followed by a Naperville renovation in 2021, and then getting them back to about 40,000 rounds per golf course, come a year or two after that. During the period that Springbrook is closed for renovation, we had anticipated that Naperville would see an increase in its rounds. During the period of time that Naperville is partially closed for its renovation, Springbrook would see an increase in its rounds. So those things would balance out over time, but ultimately leading to getting back to where you can have $1 million in surplus to cover some of these capital items, to put some money away for your future replacement, and to get these things, retain these things on a profitable footing, which is kind of where you are now. So I think that that's a big piece to make sure that you're able to hold water, to hold your position in golf, which is important. We think that the improvements being proposed will impact you on both ends of the candle, so to speak. You can help improve your revenue, and you can help improve your expenses by being more efficient in your operation. We had anticipated about a $455,000 improvement after all enhancements are being in revenue, but you might also see a little bit of an increase in expenses in some places as well, for a net improvement of about $215,000, which should be sufficient to safely cover the annual capital reserve and at least contribute to an annual capital improvement and any kind of reduction program. The projection that we did is based on a slight differential between green fee inflation and expense inflation. We're sort of keeping up with what the historical trend has been, and we think it's appropriate to try to prepare you for that. Expenses tend to grow a little faster than revenues in golf due to the competitive nature and the inability to really push green fees up that high. So we want to make sure that we address that in our projections as well. So I'll conclude with our key recommendations based on all of the work that we have done here. And the National Golf Foundation, who is an independent and impartial golf research organization. We don't design courses, we don't build golf courses, we don't operate golf courses, we don't finance golf courses. We're strictly independent golf research entity, trying to provide some research and consulting to help you make the right decision about your system. And our recommendation is that that you go ahead with the upgrades that are being proposed, but that you stagger the improvements over a 2-year period, starting with the Springbrook improvements first and followed by the Naperville improvements in the second year. That way you'll always have one full golf course open and operating in its entirety during the improvement process. I also think that one of the mistakes that I often see with other municipalities when they enter into these investments, they feel like they've made these investments to improve their golf courses, they really need to increase their green fees. And I think that might be a mistake to be too aggressive with that. You've really developed a good, strong position for yourselves as a good value in the golf world, providing high-quality golf course conditions at a good, reasonable price. And I think that that's the position you always want to be in. Your golf people are watching very closely what the other golf courses are charging, and they found a nice niche for themselves. And I think that that's something that should continue, so I'd be careful to be too aggressive with fee increases.
Can I ask a question on that point?
Yes, sir.
It says overall Naperville Park District golf pricing places both golf courses in the middle to upper range of public golf in the western Chicago suburb. Is that a good place to be, or is that a little high in the market?
I think it's a good place to be. I think you're providing a good value. There are some golf courses that have green fees that are substantially higher than yours, that don't necessarily have golf course conditions or playability that is that much better than you. But they have other amenities, maybe in their clubhouses and some things that allows them to attract some bigger tournaments and events and things like that. But I think it's a good spot. It's basically middle to upper middle.
Of the fees, of the total fees.
Of the fees, correct.
Okay.
And I certainly would, I just have 2 more points to make, and then we'll open it up to questions. I think that you should market the new improvements. I know you're doing a good job marketing your facilities, and I was very impressed with the marketing and the electronic marketing, the website, the email, and all of that you're doing. But as you improve these facilities, you really should make that known. Let people know that you're improving the facilities. A grand reopening type event would be a very strong thing to do when you reintroduce these properties after the improvements. I think is strong. And then I really believe in this program. that I mentioned earlier. That's a big part of Naperville Park District golf, and it's a big part of your long-term future to develop new players. Having the lesson program, and I think that that kind of ties in with the investments that you're proposing for Naperbrook in particular, having those new practice amenities, being able to teach golf to a whole new generation of future golfers that can support these facilities for the long term, I think is key. And I don't mean to get on my soapbox for that, but that's kind of what I find myself saying all around the country, is that really is the key for the long-term future of golf, is developing new players and providing high-quality facilities for them that are fair, yet challenging, and providing the right level of service, but having the right amenities and mix of amenities that, what I like to refer to as something for everyone. I think with all these investments that you're proposing, the Naperville Park District golf courses will fit that bill. You'll have something for everyone. If you've never picked up a golf club in your life before, or you think you're Tiger Woods and you're good enough to be on the PGA Tour, right, or anything in between that, there's something for you at one of these properties, and I think that's a really strong place to be. So with that, I'll entertain your questions. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Richard, first of all, appreciate the independent perspective. Thank you for the presentation. One question is more short-term, the other one's more kind of big picture. Obviously, we'd like to hear that revenue is higher than the national average. Not so much like to hear that our expenses are higher than the national average. I mean, obviously, I read your report, but just want to hear directly from you what expenses, in your research with other golf courses and your analysis of here, could we eliminate the expenses that are unnecessary? How can we get ourselves either at or below that average, or is it possible for us to do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know, in the second part of your question, I don't know that there really is anything that's immediate and obvious. I mean, the biggest part of your expense structure in any golf operation, and certainly in yours as well, is the labor cost. And that's a big piece. And labor is more expensive in this area, and I think you have to address that. Some of the things that I think your golf staff is thinking about ways that they could reduce the maintained acreage at the properties. I also think that a more efficient and newer irrigation system at Naperbrook will help you, because a lot of staff time is being devoted to fixing breaks. They're constantly chasing breaks. And if they can get away from doing that and have a new modern irrigation system, that will free up some time to do some of these other things, and they can be more efficient with their labor. I think that that's certainly a piece of it too. But there's, the input materials are inflating, and equipment is inflating. Fertilizer, chemicals, things like that you need to maintain a golf course, those are inflating. So it's hard. The key is to try to keep up a little bit on the revenue side with the green fee increases every year, or at least every other year. And I think you've done a good job with that. Some of the municipalities I work with, they haven't raised the green fees in 15 years, and they wonder why they can't make ends meet. But it's public golf. Right. There's political pressure on that. So I think that if you can stay above that, I think that's a real positive place to be.
No. Marie, since we're talking about golf, you must have questions, comments, suggestions.
I do have one question on, you're advocating to close each one of the courses for an entire year, an entire session. So close Springbrook, work on it, keep Naperville open, and then the opposite's true. Is there any advantage to work on 9 holes at a time and keep 9 holes open in the course?
Yeah, no, it's not a full closure for a full year. I think that there will be some disruption, and the disruption will be a little bit less at Springbrook, probably a little bit more at Naperbrook when you completely rip out the irrigation system. And you could do it in such a way that you could keep golf playing, but I think you'll find that the golfers, while there'll be some that will continue to play, they'll tend to gravitate toward the other property where there's less construction and less disruption going on. But no, we are not assuming a full closure for the entire year.
And what they've outlined is 2 menus of improvements. So we've got to discuss how those would be staged, where the money would come from, et cetera. So,
I think as you get further along and have a more specific plan of exactly what projects they would entail and how long of a closure or how many holes would be taken out of play for how long a period of time, I think we'll give you a better idea on that. But we assume you would be under construction for a couple of months at each location, which may not completely restrict golf. I don't think the facility would be completely closed, but you may find that there are some golfers who would prefer to not have to deal with that and have gravitated to the other property.
Well, I also recognize that some of the changes needed would be a huge disruption and could interfere with folks' ability to play. I did agree with a lot of where they were coming from in the conclusions, because I do believe that Springbrook could certainly benefit from increased drainage. The more we can get out there, and start playing immediately after some of these giant rains that we have, the better off we're going to be.
Rains and also the availability of currents.
And Naperville, certainly drains so much better, but, following the philosophy of maintain what we have, I think the irrigation system is up for. And irrigation systems, from my understanding, have certainly been improved over the years too, so we'll get a much more efficient system than what we have today.
Yeah, we've seen that with the irrigation system at Springbrook. We redid that system in 2008, and we put significantly less time, effort, and money into that system than we do with Naperville.
Yeah.
Bobby, do you have any questions? Think that's enough. Jim?
No, I don't, I'm good.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah. Am I reading it or understanding, and apologies for being late? Just looking at Springbrook and Naperville, they're fairly consistent. So looking at Springbrook, I'm on page 56.
56.
As is, we're going to do 36,000 rounds in your estimate and make about 600 grand. And then we'll spend, you're suggesting we spend $2.6 million to get 3,000 more rounds and only effectively $13,000 more to the bottom line.
Yeah, it may come out that way. I think if the expense inflation continues the way it is, there's a reasonable chance that I think on the conservative side, that's the way you should prepare it. I think a lot of these investments are really to kind of defensive, to make sure that you can keep these open and operating, and that you can maximize your performance on this.
But spending $2 million to gain $13,000 a year, and if we go with 20, I think throughout 20 years, 20 times 13,000 doesn't equal $2 million.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think that's probably accurate. I think the return on investment for investments in golf tend to be low. But I think that the other side of it, though, is there's also a cost of doing nothing. And I think the losses, you could enter into that period of losses. I mentioned earlier that 2/3 of the municipal golf courses lose money, and a lot of them lose money because they don't make these investments, and they continue to decline in quality. The expenses continue to go up. The product is less desirable, and there is less demand for it. And I think if you want to stay in the golf business, some of these investments that we're talking about here, you may find are somewhat defensive in nature, that you're really trying to prevent the downside.
And I don't disagree, but then we turn to Naperville, and it's a little bit better picture. You're getting 40 grand on page 57, maybe 50, depending on my brain math. But we're spending $4 million to get that.
Right.
So, but we don't want to necessarily bring out huge profits. We certainly want to at least break even. So wouldn't the better bet be to invest in Springbrook and ignore Naperville altogether?
Well, I think that's in terms of, again, I'm not sure how to frame that in terms of a pure financial return on investment type analysis of this. I mean, that's not really the way we approached it for public sector golf. I think that these are public agency properties and public agency assets, and they are golf courses. And the idea is that you keep them open and running. If you have some other alternate use or idea in mind for that, I think that's a different question maybe for a different consultant. But for the golf courses, I think that if you want to keep them open and operating, and you want to continue to operate a golf program at these two properties, I think these investments are appropriate. And you will find that the nominal return on investment may not be as strong as you're properly identifying. but you're also preventing the downside. It's a defensive investment, and that you're preventing a slip to where you could start losing money on these properties, and then where are you?
Right, well, but it's also, there's the fiduciary side of things, right? So investing taxpayer money wisely, from where I'm sitting, I hear what you're saying, but there's a balance there.
Right.
And I'm all for putting $2-3 million into Springbrook, but I don't see putting $4 million into Naperville. I think we're better off selling it.
Well, again, I don't know what the market might be for something like that. If it needs to stay a golf course or it has some other property use, I think that you may find that that's a better question for a different consultant. I think from a pure golf perspective, though, it has potential. As the ratio of golfers to golf courses continues to improve in this area, I think that you could longer term outperform some of this. But ultimately, it's contributing significantly to it, and as I understand it, while it's the initial investment is district funds, it is being paid back by the golf revenue that is being generated from the two properties. So they are essentially self-sustaining themselves, including the investments, as they've paid off their previous debt, which is getting ready to be paid off in 2019.
Mike King, do you have any, as a user?
I like it. I look forward to having proper drainage. You said removal of trees too, but Paul find the trees. So I'll help you with that. We have a few holes in mine.
Absolutely.
But no, I think it's a great presentation and great work. So thank you.
I think one point to be made, we talk about Naperville, the irrigation system is the biggest chunk of that projection.
Yes.
And that's something that is at the end, if not based on what you said before, but it's the math running ahead. It's already past what we anticipate for useful life. So that's why we're running into so much additional maintenance.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think a lot of what's being proposed falls into let's take care of what we own, and over again in our surveys, our community is telling us that we should maintain what we own, and I think that's what we're doing, especially with the irrigation system. Yes, it's expensive, but we fix the irrigation and improve the irrigation systems of our fields. We should do the same with our golf courses. Also, I think Commissioner Egan continues to ignore the fact that I find that Naperville is more preferred by the women and by junior golfers, and to merely say that we should just get rid of that one ignores that entire population and the views of them. I think that we have two golf courses that are very well balanced and provides different opportunities for a variety of golfers. I think that's certainly what they found, and we should continue to maintain it. It seems like let's just maintain what we have, improve it. We haven't had the ability to do that over the last few years because of the debt that was incurred, but we have the ability to do that in the future, and I think we should continue to move forward.
Jim?
Yeah, I have a question. So on page 6, bottom of page 6, under 2023, you have an operating income or loss must be income. So this is a net gain of $1 million, $41,000 a year. Is that right? And you said that 2 out of 3 golf courses lose money. Public golf courses losing a year. What's the potential losses for a golf course of this size if it wasn't well maintained? Would be like one of the lower ones that you're talking about. What kind of losses are they experiencing?
Well, I'm working with a couple of systems that are similar to size in yours that have 2 golf courses that lose $500,000, $600,000 a year. That has to be funded by taxpayer support.
So not saying that we could go that low, but if we were like them, then the difference would be about $1.6 million a year.
That could potentially be. I mean, in the worst case, yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Bill, did you?
Yeah, I know, and certainly it's based on the projections, because the courses were performing a lot worse before rate came in, right? They were optimized and they're running the staff a lot better, and kudos to that. But to the extent that that's not managed, this becomes a lot more dire. And I appreciate your sentiments, Marie, but the survey also says that the people want an indoor swimming pool and the cost to build that and maintain that. We're not jumping on that, but we're dumping $4 million into Twiggs next year, next to the library. So I'm confused. I'm all for golf. I'm not committed to two courses in the city.
Just a point of clarification on the library plaza. The Park District is not going to be paying $4 million. Reed, did you have a point? Rick?
In all your travels to all these different golf courses, one scenario that I've been ping-ponging around is, you mentioned the challenge with golf, and one of the key drivers being time, right? I don't have 5 hours, I got my family and traffic and everything else. What are you seeing with the 9-hole golf course, and can you cite an example anywhere nationwide where someone took an 18-hole golf course, left 9 holes there, and took the other footprint of the other 9 holes and put a swimming pool or an ice rink or ball fields or soccer fields or something, and created an athletic campus that would have the 9 holes, again, to address the issue of time, and then would use the rest of the space for some other purpose? Can you cite an example anywhere nationwide, or a couple examples of what you've seen hasn't worked or not working?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you that the specific example that you described, I do not have examples of that, but I have seen what I call repurposing of golf. Typically in larger systems where they have multiple facilities, thinking that maybe they have too many, they think about reducing the size and they create something like that. I worked a couple of years ago with the East Baton Rouge Parish in Louisiana. It's a county in Louisiana. They operate 7 golf courses, and we thought 4 or 5 was a better number. And little by little, they've been closing them down. And one of them is Howell Park, which was an 18-hole golf course, which now has a little 9-hole pitch and putt. And they've repurposed the rest of the park into picnic areas and pavilions. They built a new lake for people to do paddle boards and things like that. So they have repurposed the park completely away from a full 18-hole golf course into a small little 9-hole par 3 pitch and putt type golf course. But I haven't seen the specific that you're talking about, where you have 18 holes and you reduce it to 9 and use the rest of the property for something else. I haven't seen that.
How does that idea sound for Naperville Park District? Does it sound nutty, or does it sound like, hey, maybe?
Well, I don't know that it sounds nutty, but I think that, I don't know, how landlocked you are as a district and as a community, and how valuable land is. I mean, certainly where I live in South Florida, we see that happening because there is no other property. So the developers, they kind of eye these golf courses and say, well, hey, if this isn't doing well economically, I got a better use for this. But just driving out of Springbrook, there's a lot of open space that certainly stands out to me. But the first part of your question was about people being time challenged and playing 9 holes or playing a less amount of golf. That I do see a lot of, and that can be accommodated and is being accommodated by your 18-hole courses. I think just this evening we saw a 4-hole loop being sold to somebody who just came out in the late afternoon, wanted to play 4 holes of golf and then leave for a small amount of money. I mean, you can accommodate that. You don't have to build a 4-hole golf course. You can accommodate that on an 18-hole golf course. The same with 9-hole play as well.
Thank you.
Rick? Bobby? Bill?
I just think this is preventative maintenance. Basically keeping the value for the community and the players out there to make sure that we have a quality golf course. You said, let's put it to 2030, or beyond. It's just like your own home. You want to make sure that your home is nice and the value is there. The right of education you have. So that's all we're doing for these courses. And the debt that we're incurring is covered by the fees that are already there, the green fees. Right? So it's really, you don't have to add more fees. It's pretty much there. There's covering the debt, moving in, giving the quality golf courses to the community. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay. You're earning about $1 million, in net revenue after expenses and before debt. And if you want to continue that level of performance, you may find that you're going to need to make these investments in order to keep that up.
Kevin, do you have any comments?
No, I appreciate everything, Richard and Greg, and I look forward to more discussion on this topic.
Richard, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, next item.
Yeah, right.
Next item is our 2018 tax levy resolution.
So this is just a heads up, wanted to let you know that the legal packet going out tomorrow, you're going to see the draft of the resolution. And if you recall, annually, we are required to pass a resolution estimating what our 18 tax levy will be. So the memo will explain that. Resolution is very simple. It's not passing the tax levy, that would be in December. It's just an estimation of what our levy will be. For this year, again, we're going to be, as we always have, we inflate the levy, or balloon the levy, some people call it, and that just means that we estimate what we think we're going to get, and because we don't have final reconstruction numbers or EDP numbers from the county, we estimate a higher levy, and then that gets reduced down by the amount of work. So we are proposing to do that again. You'll see that. And so the resolution would be on the first meeting in November for approval, and then December 13th would be the approval of the tax levy. So you'll see that you'll see the resolution in the packet tomorrow.
Thank you. Next is the 2019 recycling dumpster service renewal.
Yes, in 2018, the district contracted with Groot for our recycling and dumpster collection. The contract included a second-year option at the same price. The district is looking to exercise that option per the contract and renew the recycling and dumpster service for 2019.
Next, 2019 fuel supply renewal.
Similar to that, the district had contracted with Feast Oil in 2018 for our fuel services. And that contract included options for our second and third year at the same price. The margin that we pay for our fuel will remain the same. And the district is looking to exercise the options for that contract in 2019, the second year option.
Next, mower purchase for park services.
Parks is looking to purchase a 2019 Toro Groundsmaster from Reinders for the price of $54,119.15. This new mower will have a greater width of cut, which will help improve productivity in the parks. The mower is going to replace a 2007 Toro, which will be repurposed to golf operations.
Okay.
Do we have, we threw out the word efficiency because of the larger size of it.
Correct.
We didn't quantify that.
I'm
Is there
sorry?
a way we can quantify how much more efficient we're going to be?
I would not be able to tell you exactly what the difference would be in the mower, but I do know with the wider width, we will obviously get more acreage in less time.
Right, but that's not more, I get the concept, I'm asking for the exact quantity.
Maybe you can,
And it's not off the top.
But I can have staff follow up with you on that.
do we know what the width is of the current mower and the width of the new mower?
The current mower I know is a 11-foot model. I believe the new mower is a 15-foot model.
Okay,
So you can have staff, follow
so
up.
it's
with that.
approximately 1/3 wider. So we would anticipate that if we can go at the same speed, it would take 1/3 less time.
Correct.
Right, 1/3 less passes. No.
Okay, I think that's not a good answer. Okay, declaration of surplus property.
The district is bringing to you some items for surplus for ordinance 945. We have some items from fleet to trucks, and then some items from golf from our training center. Some of the fitness equipment is being surplus off.
Okay. Finally, we turn it over to somebody else.
All right.
2019 program guide delivery.
Yeah, so I'll be bringing the contract for approval for the program guide delivered to board meeting on November 8th. And the recommendation will be to continue with our current mail delivery process through our present provider, Zip Mail. We will be seeing a 2-cent increase in delivery per program guide for a per piece delivery cost of 49 cents as opposed to 47 cents. And this will be a per quarter increase of $940, about $3,700 per year.
Next item is Southwest Community Park naming request.
Yes, Naperville Park District staff recently met with Jenny. Jenny is here this evening to talk about Southwest Community Park in the area years ago that her family, as well as other families in Naperville, founded and settled Naperville. This goes back to 1846. We had a really great discussion about the history of Naperville, how it was founded, and how everyone worked together to make it such a wonderful place that it is today. And we thought it was really important to how do we capture and tell that story. And we came up with the idea of interpretive signage, very similar to what we have at Centennial Beach. And the thought is, and this relates to the Naperville Park District naming policy, but the thought is to name the new pavilion at Southwest Community Park the Wolf's Crossing Pavilion. And with that, in the pavilion, the thought is to have these interpretive signs telling the history and the wonderful stories of how Naperville was settled, was built, and kind of was developed throughout the years. With that being said, we're asking for the board's consideration this evening for that naming and start the 60-day period, that review period, per our policy. So it's just an update. We're seeking consensus from the board. If there is a consensus, then we'll bring it to the November 8th meeting for a formal vote to officially start that 60-day period.
Any questions, comments? Did you hear that?
And then if I can, there's one more item. Yes.
One second before we move on. Does anyone have any opposition to this idea?
Scared about it now. It's like-
I'm assuming that the whole family is the family that lived in that area.
Yeah, and there was other families as well, but Ginny's family, going back 1846, and then more recently her father, Dr. Glenn Wolf, in the 1950s, I think he was on the board at Edward Hospital. So there's just like a timeline, there's just a lot of history, but we're focusing on the Southwest Community Park area and where that farm was settled years ago.
And this would be on the agenda in the November meeting for action.
For action, and that starts
To
a
start
60-day review period, and then
Or
we're
would
going
have-
to bring it back
have
early
time
in
to-
2019 for formal approval via ordinance.
Right. So we'd have time to do our own independent review of whatever we want.
And then I have one more item as it relates to the capital project item, and just an update as it relates to the 95th Street Community Plaza project. Earlier this week, I picked up the last remaining comment cards from the 95th Street Library. As you may recall, we did extensive outreach after the presentation that was provided to the board on August 23rd by Rich Hitchcock on the project, and working with Sam and her team, there was an extensive community outreach. There was also these kiosks and presentation boards of the concepts of the 95th Street Community Plaza at the 95th Street Library, the Freshman Center, Equa Valley High School, 95th Street Community Center, and Knock Knolls Nature Center. We received 162 comment cards. I'll pass this along for the board to review this evening. But we had a tremendous amount of interest in the project. Some of the top themes that we identified from staff, and the first one really wasn't on our radar, but it was a splash pad. And one of the thoughts that a splash pad can be incorporated within the playground area. We can make some adjustments to the design and probably get that within budget. So that's something we'd like to consider, as well as another support amenity that was on the radar was additional parking for the area. Other key amenities, as you see in the comment cards, is the outdoor classroom spaces, shade structures for the high school students. They really want access to food trucks, vending, cafes, right? Sure. And then also the outdoor classrooms, Wi-Fi, electronic device recharging stations, amphitheater, the fitness lawn, and then the next top amenity was the pond area. Being close to the water, having a pier, maybe a possibility of fishing. But they, as you can see there, the folks, the students and the folks that are interested in the project that comment on it were really much in support of it. So we want to just report out that. And then so the next phase, as identified at the August 23rd presentation, was to start construction in April 2019. In order to maintain that timeline, it's our recommendation to present an 80 service contract to the board for consideration at a meeting in November to kind of keep that rolling along. So I just want to provide an update there.
So you want to propose the contract before we approve the budget?
Yes, yeah. This is absolutely, and we've done this in the past with other large-scale projects. This is just to kind of keep the project moving along for the to ensure that we maintain that April 2019 timeline.
Okay, next item we have is independent contractor agreements for program instruction.
Yes, at the November meeting, I'll be bringing 3 independent contractor agreements for program instruction to the board for consideration. These are with contractual companies that we utilize extensively and end up having payments during the course of the year that exceed $25,000. The first contract will be with All Star Sports. They do a number of youth sports instruction programs at many of our facilities. The second is Shotokan Karate, which runs a very large karate program through the district. And then the last will be Challenger Sports. Challenger Sports provides the trainers for our Premier Soccer League for those teams that wish to train with a trainer, as well as they run a number of different camps and clinic sports during the course of the year. The payments to these contractors are all covered through the program fees that are charged to those fees.
Hey Brad, quick question on that. In youth sports, like you're describing, the issue of background checks and child safety has been a really hot topic. Can you remind me, are there requirements in these agreements that these organizations adhere to a certain standard of background check on their personnel, or is it something that we administer? Or?
Yes, no, that is something that's the requirement of the contractor, but that is within the independent contractor agreement. That means that background checks need to be completed on anyone who's working in the program.
So they're responsible, the contractor is responsible for, is there like a certain standard that they're supposed to adhere to, or certain training they're supposed to have?
I'll have to review the actual language within the agreement. I don't believe that we specify within that agreement exactly which format they have to use, but that's something we can look at.
Yeah, it's got a really hot topic in the industry, and there might even be legislation coming down that involves these types of things.
We're going to be moving in a different direction with a different company.
Different
They'll be more
background.
expansive across the United States.
For our.
For our own.
Yeah, it will include the required Illinois State Police background check, but it'll be much more
Right.
expanded.
And that's what I'm getting at with this question. I mean, should we be holding these contractors are in front of these kids just as much as our own staff, in some cases more. Should we be holding these contractors to our standards, or is that too aggressive? It's something that we should move towards, maybe not immediately, but in the next couple of years, because there's just more and more, that I'm hearing about this.
Dirk, can you comment on what you're seeing in other districts, other areas?
It really hasn't been a factor. Nobody's the first size. That's how I understand it.
Well, Brad and I can take a look at the contracts and consult with Dermot as well to see if they have any thoughts on that.
Question. On the same kind of, I guess, the refs for little youth soccer, kids soccer. We, a couple of times again this season, we ended up without a ref there. And it's been a problem in the past as well. Can we outsource that? What can we do to guarantee? Because I get a lot of grief from parents saying, we pay these fees, and part of that should be having a ref there. And obviously, school Saturdays, it's crazy. Is there anything that we can do to get something outsourced or to have some backups from another company?
That's something we can certainly look at outsourcing some of our fees, I would say, within the older age levels, much like we do with the youth basketball program that we have now, where we the pack referees for some of the older levels. Unfortunately, that has been a problem that we've had within the program. One with the number of referees securing enough to have that full coverage and to have that overlap. And then we have had instances where quite simply a referee significantly simply doesn't show, and that's a personnel matter that we have to do. So,
Yeah, and someone that's outsourced officials for 15 consecutive years, that there's no guarantee. I mean, you outsource, they'll no-show it as well. The only way to prevent that from happening is to overschedule, to have an extra body that's just sitting there on standby, which obviously that costs. Or if you're, let's say you're supposed to have 2 officials, you schedule 3, knowing that if someone flags out of the count, then you've got it. So that's really the only surefire way of preventing that, is to overschedule, and that would not a terrible idea, but it definitely is something that would increase the budget and the cost for that particular program.
Yeah, I mean, I coached in this system for 15 years, and at the younger age levels, when the referee didn't show up, the parent just stepped up. It's really easy. I mean, if there's two coaches, one of the coaches will go out. I mean, you're not keeping score, you're just making sure that the kids are learning the fundamentals of the game. You know, at the end of the day, I agree with you, the ref should show up, but it's an easy fix. Usually a parent just steps up and goes, yeah, I'll go out there. Not a problem.
Well, that's certainly what's happening now. That's not me, 'cause I don't know all the rules, but the underlying grief that I'm hearing is we're paying for this to get this bit of it. Fields are fine. The refs, I wouldn't want to be out there all day, especially now if the weather was miserable. But to make sure that that's, you know, we're fulfilling the obligation, whatever the fee is, it's 6-8 games. We keep score because I've been recipient of the letters when this, you know, the score was more lopsided no matter what we did. So it's, you know, it's just one of those things. We're not going to make everybody happy, I get that, but if we can look into putting a backstop, and if it makes sense, great. If not, I'm okay with that.
Jim, did you
I just know in the club soccer stuff, we have always outsourced those, and we still have occasional no-shows, and had parents step up and ref. And I never that was a huge problem, but maybe the numbers are bigger now, but certainly never found it to be a problem. The old club level where it was not even able to step up and be a ref for a game that doesn't really count.
Do a lot of complaints get to you in this?
Not to me on this. I do know that we've had different we've had situations, even many years ago, I used to oversee the soccer program, the recreational soccer program, 15 years ago. And we had similar situations that occurred then, where you would have someone scheduled and they simply they wouldn't show. And you then work to fix that for the following weekend and so on. To Commissioner Janner's point, with several of the games, when we have enough referees, we do attempt to schedule and have a couple of referees out there for that very reason. And that's something that we still certainly hope to do where we've got referees that are available. But this has been something that I think it's just a challenge with youth sports in general, that you're working with officials and referees who are going to have those times when they don't show. We'll certainly do our best to work to address it.
Is that it on that?
Yes, that's it.
Naperville softball field lease agreement.
Yes, at the November meeting, we will also be bringing to the board for consideration an intergovernmental cooperation agreement and lease agreement with School District 203 for a portion of property at Naperville Park. We've been in discussions with School District 203. They are in need of developing a new varsity girls softball field. And the area that is just north of the central maintenance facility at Naperville Park is an underutilized field area. It's currently an 8-foot baseball field that had a total of 6 games scheduled on this year. In discussions with District 203, similar to what we did in 2011 with the varsity baseball field that's located at that same park, we're recommending that we lease the property to the north so that District 203 may complete the improvements and construct the new girls softball field there. As part of the lease, the term would be that the community would have access and use to that field, as well as Park District programs. The intent is to begin construction. School District 203 would begin construction of that field in July of 2019 in order to be able to have it completed in the fall and ready for the 2020 spring softball season. So with that, the term would begin in July of 2019 and would extend for a period of 20 years, consistent with, again, the lease agreement that we have with 203 for the varsity baseball field area.
And the Parks and Rec Committee did unpack this a little further and did some analysis during that committee, and I believe the consensus was that this was a good example of intergovernmental cooperation between the Park District and District 203 for the benefit of the all involved, and we were generally supportive of this.
Is that lease going to run concurrently with the baseball lease, or are they ending at the same time?
They're not ending at the same time. The baseball lease, that was executed in 2011. So
not that anything would ever happen, but if there's some issue, then we've got 2 weeks to clear different dates, so.
I agree with that. Getting them somehow lined up would be smart.
And the pickup play is gonna be, you said, open to the community when it's not programmed, for like baseball is.
So as part of, the term that there would be community access to be able to utilize the field space. So we work with the school district on scheduling not only park district programs to be able to use the space, but community organizations to be as well.
Okay, item number 11, under discussion topics, quarterly strategic plan update.
Yeah, you're getting a copy of the update here. Rather than go through this one by one, I'll entertain any questions once you have it in front of you. We did review this at the Park and Recs Committee meeting. After this meeting this evening, unless there's any significant changes that you want to make, this will go up on the website to replace the last one, the last version of this one.
There's no change between what was presented by you.
No, there was one change, and it was, what was the nomenclature for Kevin put in there about the maintenance? It was the 10-year, it was one word, but it didn't change.
10-year maintenance plan for natural areas.
Yeah. We're moving along nicely, we'll be done with this early. Yeah.
Okay, 2019 group plans renewal.
Okay, at the November meeting, I'm going to bring forward recommendations for the group insurance plans that are placed with our commercial carriers for the 2019 coverage year, and that being dental and vision insurance. The vision, my recommendation is we stay with the current carrier, where we'll be moving into the second year of a 4-year rate guarantee, so it's flat. We still, even though we're in the midst of a rate guarantee, the vision insurance was taken out to market. The option that came forward is a potential competitor really slashed the benefits significantly for saving pennies on the dollar, essentially. So the recommendation will be to remain with the current coverage. Dental coverage, I am recommending that we change, and this is actually a change from the conversations we had at the Parks and Rec Committee meeting and Finance Committee meeting, because Cigna came in kind of late to the game, but with an offer that is just phenomenal in comparison to the renewal, and then also the other plan that we're looking at. So we're actually having some benefit increase and a 4% decrease in our annual cost with a 2-year rate guarantee. So we change, it seems like we change dental carriers every 2 years. So this would be the time to change from Emeritus to something else, but then we have that 2-year rate guarantee, so which will help with the budgeting process too, as we move forward.
Why do you think Cigna came in so late, so low, just hard to say?
It is really hard to say, although dental, I always get really, there's such a cap to the coverage.
Right.
I'm like, how wide, because like Emeritus came at us with an 8.5% increase, and I was like, no. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, and honestly, it is a much better network. Like I said, there's an increase in benefits, and even the original quote or program that they presented, they came in with 1 fluoride treatment per year covered under the plan. And I called my dentist, Brian texted his wife, who happened to be the dentist with their kids, and because I couldn't remember how frequently, if it was twice a year or once a year, the fluoride treatments, and so I said, well, why don't we one? Everybody else is doing 2, and the norm seems to be 2. So they changed that without changing the proposal that's submitted. I'm not sure why they came. Yeah.
Sometimes in insurance, when you're quoting, if you know there's a significant change coming or changing pricing coming, you're better off waiting, even if it puts you kind of on the edge.
Yeah.
Because if you come in with one bid and then try to go back with another one, oftentimes the second one isn't accepted, or the first one just gets rejected on the end. But as long as it works our benefit.
Absolutely.
Okay. 2019 IAPD IPRA conference.
Just a heads up that it's being held on January 24th through the 26th at the Hyatt. Registration is open and early bird rates are through December 10th. So I'll be sending out an invite to give me an idea of what the plans are.
We have several staff that are presenting. Ray, Chief Schniven, Eric is presenting, and Sue Stanish.
I expect to see you all at like. Pretty good.
What are you presenting on?
It's called When Blank Hits the Fan.
Alien and Dirk are also presenting.
We'll expect you at hours on Saturday afternoon.
Is that over the board meeting? The 24th, you said?
You know what, I haven't set the schedule yet.
It appears that overlaps with the board meetings, so just.
Looking at that. No, I sent out the preliminary schedule.
Okay, next item on our agenda is future meetings. Before we start the list of future meetings, so we pointed out that in November, normal schedule will call for a meeting, the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners on November 8th. On November 9th, we have our retreat plan, and on November 12th, we have a special meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners, the budget presentation that was announced to the public back on August 23rd. So an idea has been floated to combine the November 8th meeting into the November 12th meeting. Someone would like to make a motion to that, so we can get a second and have discussion.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on that motion?
November 12th is a Monday, right?
That's correct.
I've been able to make Mondays for years. I'm not going to be able to make the meeting, so I'll be voting no.
Anything else? Bridget, you do a roll call vote on this, please.
First President Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
No.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes. Okay, then, next meeting will be the special meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners, November 12, 2018, 6:30 p.m. here, followed by a meeting, regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners, December 13, 2018, at 7 p.m. in the Naperville Municipal Center City Council chambers. Next item that we have on our agenda is executive session.
Move to adjourn to executive session to discuss land acquisition under 2C5 of the Open Meetings Act.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Can we